Schopenhauer once called Hegel a flat-headed, insipid, nauseating, illiterate charlatan who reached the pinnacle of audacity in scribbling together and dishing up the craziest mystifying nonsense. On the other hand, Derrida essentially questions Western metaphysics. You mentioned in your book, This Self We Deserve, starting roughly with Descartes, spoken philosophy became written philosophy. This tradition passed on to Kant and Hegel. Hegel made another rapid shift. He focused on language and became the first thinker of writing. In Derrida's words, the last philosopher of the book and the first thinker of writing. Can you explain that?
To question metaphysics, to question the origin or the end, basically is to question what is a metaphysics, if the metaphysics still valid. This idea ties into the modern time consciousness. So whether Heidegger moves about or somebody else does, the question is the same question. Basically, you may say that the time consciousness started with Descartes, I think, therefore I am, which is really probably the most pronounced and clear manifesto of self, the subject, the individual, the modern man. You talk about metaphysics. At this point, it's not different from talking about the history. If we talk about the history, there's no difference to talk about spirit. If you look at this way, you go back to Hegel again. So what is the whole big deal about the beginning of modern period is marked by epochal incision of the philosophy of consciousness, starting with Descartes. Heidegger moves about within the modern time consciousness. What is the modern time consciousness? You have to go back to Hegel to get that clear out. As we all learned that Hegel made it very clear that time, if time does not overcome space, then time goes with space. Because for a long time, human beings thought that time and space were separate. And which, to us is not a big deal anymore. Started with Einstein and a few others. We discovered that the time and the space is always inseparable. But you have to understand, before that was a new concept. And in fact, when Hegel made that statement, he made it very philosophical. So it's kind of like he sugar-coated the idea. Because it's a very big idea, it's another way to challenge God and the church. So the consequence may be too severe. This is also why Schopenhauer said that Hegel is a charlatan, like a geek selling people stuff, lying about everything. Hegel's time, majority of European people departing from church. So everybody begin to recognize the whole theological view of the world is a problem. People question about God and church, whether it's Catholic or Christian. People question about it, God's existence and the power. Now, of course, the idea, or as a consequence, a ramification of the age of enlightenment, is the self-awakening, the sense of self. And when you say God is dead, still it's very hard for individuals to have a grip in reality, because you have been relying on God for so many thousand years, and all of a sudden there's no God. What are people going to do? So they're going to have to find something, some sort of philosophical, in this sense. It could be an ideological idea, thinking that people can hang on and people use as a walker so they can move on. You can't just jump out of the church and say, okay, I'm free. Unless you claim yourself a God, create your own world, which modern people do. But in the 1800s, no one would do that. You wouldn't do that because you can get in trouble. They probably stone you. So what do people need? People need an ideology. People need a thinking and hold on to, move on. Now, what is the crucial question people are bothered? People are scared of. People are concerned. What are the questions? The two questions always essential to human beings. One, God. Two, redemption. So God represents the absolute. Redemption represents liberty. Or rather, you say freedom. You suffer in this world. Once you accept God, God saves you, you're free. Freedom means happiness. And to this very day, why people go to church? Because they want to hold on to something solid that they can rely on. God is the representation of that. Liberty and freedom are not exactly the same thing. So in this sense, you are liberated, then you are free. That's called freedom. So liberty and freedom, you're always trying to use this together, trying to figure out exactly the meaning you're trying to say. So in this case, Hegel saw the opportunity, created two concepts. One, spirit. Two, freedom. Is that not perfect? Use the spirit, replace God. And use the freedom, replace the redemption. Problems are solved. This is why Schopenhauer says it's a charlatan. Now you see that makes sense.